I remember the first time I held her in my arms. She was barely minutes old, her skin still wrinkled and red, her eyes squinting into the cold, unfamiliar light of the hospital room. And yet, when her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, so fragile, so impossibly small, it felt like something cracked open inside me. I'd never felt that kind of love before. Raw, unconditional, terrifying. Alia and I had been complicated, off and on for nearly 2 years. We fought more than we laughed. We broke up twice. She accused me of being distant. I accused her of being reckless. But when she told me she was pregnant, none of that seemed to matter anymore. Something shifted. I came back, moved in, swallowed my pride, promised I'd be better, promised I'd stay. There were moments, quiet ones, when I caught her looking at me strangely, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. I ignored it. I wanted to believe in this new beginning. I wanted to believe that maybe we were just two broken people who had finally found a reason to heal. That reason was her, our daughter. We named her Mia. It was Alia's idea. Short, sweet, international. A name that would fit anywhere, just like we hoped she would. The first few months were brutal. Sleepless nights, endless crying, diapers, formula, midnight fevers. I wasn't a natural at any of it. But I tried. God, I tried. Every time I rocked her to sleep, I whispered to her that I would never leave. That no matter how hard life got, I'd be there. That she could count on me, even if no one else could. And she did. She grew up fast. Too fast. Her first steps were toward me. Her first word was Dada. And I swear, when she looked at me, it felt like she saw right through the mess of who I was and loved me anyway. People used to say she didn't really look like me. Different eyes, different smile. But kids change as they grow, right? That's what I told myself. That's what I believed. Until the day I couldn't anymore. But that part comes later. Right now, I just want to stay here, in this memory, in this beginning, because it was real to me. Every laugh, every tear, every moment I held her and thought, this is what love feels like. Even if the truth, one day, would shatter everything I knew. They say the heart knows before the mind does. But I didn't listen to my heart back then. I listened to the silence, that convenient, everyday silence we wrapped ourselves in while trying to build something that looked like a family. And in that silence, something creaked now and then. Softly, barely noticeable, like a crack in the ceiling that grows wider day by day, but you pretend not to see it. I noticed how Alia looked at Mia, sometimes with warmth, but sometimes there was something else. A flicker of sadness, guilt, just for a second. But I saw it, and I looked away, because I didn't want to see more. One day my mother asked me, "Are you sure she's your child?" I got angry, furious, like she'd stabbed something sacred. How could she even say that? I was there from day one. I held her at the hospital. I was the first one to see her. I didn't respond, just left the room, because I wasn't ready to even consider the possibility that what I believed with all my heart might not be true. I was Mia's dad from the start. I bought her diapers. I held her during sleepless nights. I sang lullabies when she couldn't fall asleep. I traced a sun on her forehead with my finger when she was sick. I knew how she breathed when she slept. What kind of DNA could matter more than that? And yet, sometimes something didn't add up. I tried not to think about it, but it always came back, like a low hum in your head you just can't tune out. One day, Alia asked me, "You know I love you, right?" "I do," I said. "Why?" "I just want you to remember that." She wanted to say something. I felt it. But again, she didn't. And neither did I, because silence was easier, more comfortable. We were building a story, and it was terrifying to tear it down. So once again, I chose not to ask. We were walking down the hospital corridor, holding hands. Mia was being checked for appendicitis. Nothing too serious yet, but the doctor suggested a full examination, just to be safe. I wasn't too worried. Scared for my child, of course, but still, this felt like routine. Alia was more nervous. She kept asking, "Is this really necessary? Can't we just do something simpler?" But I insisted. We needed to do things right. Like adults. Like parents. We went through the tests, and that should have been the end of it. Just another story of a quick scare and a fast recovery. But 2 days later, the hospital called me. "Mr. Ivan, are you Mia's father?" "Yes, of course. We need to speak with you. In person." Something inside me tightened. But I shoved it down. Convinced myself it was nothing. Probably a lab error. Maybe she'd need to redo a test. When I stepped into the office, the doctor wasn't smiling. His face was calm, but cold. And behind his eyes, something almost like pity. Before the surgery, we ran a routine blood compatibility test, and we found some discrepancies. We double-checked, and I'm afraid we have to inform you." He paused. "Inform me of what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You are not the biological father of the child." My breath caught. I didn't understand. Truly, I couldn't process the words right away. You must be mistaken. There's been some error." He simply pointed to the folder on the desk. We repeated the tests. Twice. I felt nauseous. Like the floor was gone. Like I was suspended in nothing. Just sitting there in that sterile room, listening only to the sound of my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't just news. It was war. Inside me. Between what I believed and what now stared back at me on an official sheet of paper, stamped and signed. I don't remember leaving the office. I don't remember the drive home. Only this. When I opened the door, Mia ran toward me and shouted, "Daddy!" She threw her arms around my neck, squeezing tight. And I broke. I cried. She thought I was crying because I missed her. But I cried because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. To her, I was Daddy. But to myself, I hadn't slept in 2 nights. Alia noticed something was off. I was quiet. I didn't ask questions. Didn't hug her like before. But I didn't argue either. And that scared her more than any shouting ever could. "What's going on with you?" she asked on the 3rd day. "I went to the hospital," I said. "They told me." I stopped, because I didn't know how to finish the sentence. Any word I said would poison the air between us forever. She froze. Pale. No reaction. No denial. "They said there's no DNA match," I finally said. "That I'm not her father. Not biologically." She didn't argue. Didn't say, "That's not true." Didn't try to lie. Didn't even say we should double-check. She just looked down. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. I stayed silent. I was scared. "You had left back then?" And she swallowed. "It was one night. Just one night. I never thought I'd get pregnant. And when I found out, I didn't know what to do. Then you came back. And I decided that maybe it didn't matter. Didn't matter." Those words, like a nail through my skull. I held that child's hand. Took her to the ocean. Cried when she scraped her knee falling off her bike. I recorded her first words. I painted her a map of the stars for her birthday. And that didn't matter? I didn't say any of it out loud. I just stood up and walked out of the room. Because I couldn't look into the eyes of someone who betrayed me. Not together, but alone. Made a choice that was never hers to make. For both of us. Mia ran up to me in the hallway. "Daddy, where are you going?" I knelt down, hugged her, tight, and realized the thing that scared me the most was that I no longer knew what inside me was real and what was broken. "I'll be back soon," I whispered, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if it was the truth. I moved in with a friend for a few days. I told them I needed space, time to think, but in truth, I was running. From her, from myself, from a life I believed was mine, that now felt like a borrowed script. I sat on the couch, holding a small toy bear in my hands, one of Mia's. It must have ended up in my bag by accident. She never slept without it. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream. But inside me, only silence. Not emptiness, just that heavy quiet, like the moment right before something collapses. I kept replaying everything. Her first smile, her first steps, her little voice saying, "Daddy, look, I drew you." Was I a fool? Or was I simply a father? Because that's the hardest part. You don't stop loving. Even when the world twists everything until you no longer recognize it. Alia kept texting me. Short messages. No demands. No drama. "Mia keeps asking where you are. I told her you're away on a work trip." "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? That I didn't know where I was either? That I was lost somewhere in the wreckage of who I thought I was? On the 4th day, I finally went to see a psychologist. Not because I was strong, but because I was on the edge of something I couldn't face alone. I couldn't breathe when I imagined the day Mia might look at me and say, "You're not my dad." And she'd be right. "You have the right to be in her life, if you want to be," the therapist said. "DNA doesn't make a parent." "But she's not mine," I whispered, and I pretended everything was fine. I built a life around her. I planned her school, her future, and now I realize, maybe I was just some guy cast in a role. "But did you choose her?" he asked. I nodded. No hesitation. Then it wasn't a role. It was a choice. That stuck with me. For the first time in days, something clicked. Something finally made sense. I didn't know what would happen with Alia. I didn't know if I'd ever forgive her. But one thing I felt in my bones. I didn't want to lose Mia. even if I'd have to fight for the right to be her dad every single day. I came back home quietly. No shouting, no scenes. I just opened the door and walked in, as if I had been gone not for 4 days, but for 4 minutes. Mia was sitting on the floor, playing with her building blocks. She looked up and froze. "Daddy." I dropped to my knees. "Hey, sweetheart." She ran to me with all the force of a child's love, that kind of love that doesn't know how to stay mad or demand explanations. It just loves, unconditionally. I held her in my arms, and there was a knot in my throat I couldn't swallow. "You're not going away again?" she whispered. "I'll try not to," I said. Honestly, because promises now, they're more than words. They're choices. Alia stepped out of the kitchen. Her eyes were full of fear and hope. She didn't dare come closer. "Can we talk?" she asked after Mia left the room. I sat down. She did the same. We were silent for a long time. And maybe, for the first time, it was honest. "I don't have the right to ask for anything," she said quietly. "But I want you to know, I never meant to lie. I was just scared. Scared that if I told you the truth, you'd leave. And when you accepted Mia as your own, I didn't have the strength to break that. But you did anyway," I said softly. She nodded. "I know. I don't know what will happen with us. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. But I know one thing. Mia is mine. Not by blood, by choice." We talked for a long time after that. No screaming. No, "You ruined everything." Or, "I'm the victim." Just two people who were hurting, but still holding on to one small place where they could meet in the middle. Later that night, after Mia had fallen asleep, I sat by her bed. I watched her breathe, watched her little face frown slightly as she dreamed. And I thought, what a cruel irony. I knew from the very beginning that I wasn't ready to be a father. And now, I can't imagine being anything else. Life didn't return to normal. It became something new, with cracks, scars, silences in our glances, and questions without answers. But we lived. Every morning, I put myself back together, like a puzzle. I'd wear Mia's favorite shirt on me because she always said, "You look like a hero in it." I drank my coffee in silence, watched her draw, focused, tongue poking out in concentration. Alia stayed quiet. She didn't push. She never asked where I was going or when I'd be back. But there was always tea in the thermos, the kind I liked, and a few of my favorite cookies on the corner of the table. No words. I hadn't forgiven her, but I hadn't left either. Because between forgiving and staying, there's a canyon. I didn't stay for her. Not yet. I stayed for Mia. I used to think love just happened, that it either existed or didn't. But now I know. Love is a choice. A constant one. Not always easy. Not always fair. But real, because it's made with intent. One evening, Mia and I were sitting on the floor working on a puzzle. It was of outer space, stars, planets, comets. She suddenly stopped, looked at me, and asked, "Daddy, how did you know I was going to be yours?" I froze for a moment. "I didn't," I said honestly. "I just looked at you one day and knew I couldn't imagine this world without you." She smiled and placed the last puzzle piece into my hand. "I always knew," she said, and that childlike certainty, it was stronger than any truth on a piece of paper. Because what is fatherhood, if not this? To choose to love, every day, even when it hurts, even when you're not sure who you are in the story, even when you're not the biological father, but the real one. She looked up at me, the way only children look at their parents. Vulnerable, straight into your soul. "Daddy, why is my last name different from yours?" The question I'd been dreading. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I wasn't ready to hear it. I stopped. We were walking home from the store. Mia was holding my hand. In the other, a small bag of cookies. The sky was so clear, it felt like it, too, had something to say. "That's how it was at the beginning," I said. "But we can change it, if you want. Do you want to?" I looked at her. That little face, so serious, with a tiny beauty mark by her lips. And those eyes. Eyes that aren't mine, but somehow became my home. "I want you to always know I'm your dad, even if the papers say something else." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "Then let's leave it like this. Because I already know." Those words, they were like a hug that lasts longer than the body can endure. We came home. Alia was making dinner. For the first time in a long while, I walked up behind her and hugged her. Just for a moment. No words. And that silence between us, it wasn't empty anymore. It became space. A space where something new could grow. That night, I pulled out the photo album and started adding new pictures. My voice in the old videos sounded different, younger, lighter. Look, this is Mia and me at the seaside. And this, her first day of preschool. And here, she's singing at the school play. And suddenly, I realized something. There wasn't a single photo that could show I'm not her biological dad. Because no such photo exists. Because fatherhood isn't in DNA. It's when your heart skips a beat when she sneezes. It's when you remember her favorite book's name and forget your own plans. It's when you tuck her in every night and kiss her forehead, even if she's already asleep. And that night, for the first time, I thought, maybe forgiveness isn't something you give once and for all. Maybe forgiveness is also a choice. One you make every day, in small doses, through actions, through love, through showing up, even when it still hurts. We were sitting in an office again, but this time, not a hospital, a social worker's office. It all started with paperwork, school forms, travel documents, future logistics. To avoid complications, Alya suggested we apply for legal paternity. Yes, it was late, but better late than never. At first, I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because the idea of going through it all again terrified me. Admitting it, explaining it, hearing out loud again that I'm not who I always believed I was. You're not the biological father? The official asked, flipping through documents. No, I said calmly. And you want to establish paternity legally? Yes. She looked up at me, not with judgment, but with surprise. Usually, it's the other way around, she said. I smiled. I know. Mia sat next to me, holding my hand. I could see she was nervous, though pretending to read a children's book. When we were left alone for a few minutes, she leaned toward me and whispered, "What if it doesn't work?" I looked at her. Then I'll still be here. Because it's not a judge or a signature that gives me the right to be your dad. It's a right I gave myself. And you gave me too. She hugged me, so tightly, so honestly, that in that moment, all the fear, the anger, the uncertainty, it all melted. We went home, tired but hopeful. Alya made tea. She was baking apple pie. The smell filled the house, like childhood. "I've seen the way you look at her," she said. "Sometimes I feel like you love her more than I do." I didn't answer, because this isn't about comparisons. Love isn't math. It can't be measured, but you can feel when it's real. That night, as I was getting into bed, Mia ran in and whispered, "At school today, I wrote that my dad is the best, even if he's not my real one. But I didn't say that part to anyone, because to me you are." And again, something in me tightened, because I realized the biggest victory wasn't in the court, and it wasn't in the papers. It was in the fact that a child chose me. The morning sun was gentle, quiet, soft, the kind of light that doesn't touch your skin, it touches something inside you. Mia was still asleep. Her arm hung off the bed, and on the floor was the same white teddy bear, the one with the torn ear. I picked it up, fixed it gently, and placed it next to her. She stirred in her sleep, just a little, then settled again. In moments like that, the world feels whole. No questions, no doubts, just a child, and you. And everything exactly where it should be. Alya was making coffee. We smiled at each other, quietly. For the first time, the silence wasn't heavy. It became space, where each of us could make a choice. Willingly, without pressure, without expectations. "You know," she said, "I was always afraid you'd leave. And I was always afraid I'd stay and fall apart." I answered honestly. And I paused, thought about it. I stayed, and I didn't fall apart. That was the truth. I had become stronger, softer, for the first time in my life, real. I had learned to love not because I had to, not because she's my blood, but because I simply couldn't not love her. That day, we received the court ruling. It was official now. I was her father. That piece of paper changed nothing, and somehow changed everything. Later that evening, Mia came up to me and said, "Daddy, I made a picture. It's you, and me, and our home." I looked at it. There we were, smiling, under a big sun. At the top, in crooked little letters, she had written, "The best dad is the one you choose." And I broke, not from pain, but from relief. Because all these months, I had been fighting for a role that had already been mine. Not on paper, but in the heart of a child. And now I know this for sure. DNA doesn't make you a father. Love does. Love that comes with no conditions. I wasn't raising someone else's child. I was simply, every day, again and again, choosing to love my own.